All right, so we're going to use this point slope formula. So we're going to pick a point. So I rewrote my formula up there. So we're going to pick a point. So here I'm just going to use my 1, okay? So I'm going to keep my y as y minus my y1, which is -3, equals my m, which is 3. I'm going to keep my x as x minus my x1, which was 4. So all I've done here is I've taken this formula, point slope formula, and I have plugged in my y1, my m, and my x1. Okay, I've kept my x and y the same. And from here I'm going to solve it. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and change this to y plus 3 on this side. And I'm going to go ahead and distribute this 3 on this side. So 3x, bring down my subtraction. 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, and then I'm going to bring this 3 over. So I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. And this leaves me with y equals 3x, -12 minus 3 is -15. So my equation for a line that goes through both of those points is going to be y equals 3x minus 15. Now I'm going to go back over that again because I know that was multiple steps. And I'm sure I have quite a few of you that are at home, so I want to make sure you get it. So our first step is to find the slope using y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. So labeled my points. I plugged in my y2, plugged in my y1, plugged in my x2 and my x1, and I went ahead and subtracted and solved. This gave me my slope, which I labeled as m. Okay, hopefully we had no questions over that. And then I'm going to go to my point slope formula. Y minus y1 equals m, parentheses x minus x1. So I stuck with that x and y point. Okay. Y minus my y1. Again, if you'd chosen this point over here, it would have also worked. But since I already had this as y1, let's keep it that way. My m, which was 3. And my x minus my x1, which was 4. From here, I went ahead and changed this to add a line change sign, which made it y plus 3. Distributed. Got 3x minus 12. Remember, my whole point of slope-intercept form, let's write that down in case we forgot it, is y equals mx plus b, so we're trying to get that y by itself. So I subtracted 3 from both sides to get y equals 3x minus 15. Okay, so let's do another one. So let's look at number 2. So our first step is to find our slope. So we're going to do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So x and y, these are my 1s, these are my 2s. I'm going to plug that in. So my y2 was 8 minus my y1, which is 5, x2, which is 4, minus my x1, which is -2, so put it in parentheses. 8 minus 5 is 3. Add a line, change the sign. 4 plus 2 is 6. So my slope is 1/2. Hopefully we won't have any questions on that. If you do, please feel free to email me. We can do a Zoom if you have some questions. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to go to my point slope formula. So I have y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. My y I don't know, so I'm going to keep it like that. My y1, I'm just going to stick with my y1 that I had, so 5. My m is 1/2. X I don't know, and x1 is going to be a negative 2. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and solve this. I'm going to leave this left side as is for the second so I can distribute. So I'm going to have half of the x minus, I'm going to go ahead and add a line, change the sign there. It's going to make it a plus. Half of 2, which is 1. Want y by itself, so I'm going to add 5 to both sides. And y equals 1/2 x plus 6. All right. Give you a minute to process that. As always, I could take this other point and plug it in to make sure it worked. So half of x, so half of 4 is 2. 2 plus 6 does give me my 8, which is my y value. Let's go ahead and look at number 3. All right, my first step is to find the slope. So I'm going to do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So x, y, x, y. These are my first points. These are my second points. All right. So my y2 is a 7. y1 is negative 5. x2 is negative 5 minus my y1, which is 5. Add a line, change a sign. I get 12. Add a line, change a sign down here, and I get negative 10. All right. This is going to simplify to negative 6/5. If you want to change it to its decimal form, that's fine too. I understand. If you want a decimal form, it's going to be negative 1.2. Sorry, that negative didn't show up very well. I'm fine with that. As always, you can use a calculator. All right, so now we're going to find our we want our slope-intercept form. So we're going to do our point-slope formula, which is y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. Okay, so keep my y as y. I'm going to stick to my 1 and 2. If you want to go ahead and try your other point, that's okay. It works the same. You're just picking a point. My slope is negative 6/5 or negative 1.2. I don't care which one you chose to use. X minus my x1, which was negative 5. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and add a line change sign here to make it y plus 5. Negative 6/5 times x is negative 6/5 x. Add a line change sign. Negative 6/5 times 5 is just going to be negative 6. Okay. If you need to plug that into a calculator to see that, that's fine. How I did it so quickly in my head, I'll show you right here, is negative 6/5 times 5. Stuck it over 1, said, oop, those cancel. These are just negative 6 in the numerator spot. Okay, from here I want y by itself, so I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. I'm left with y equals negative 6/5, or if you change that to a decimal, I don't care either way, to be honest. I'm not one of those people that cares whether it's in decimal or fraction form, as long as the fraction is simplified. I think I've told y'all this in class, I like keeping my slope in its fraction form because then if I turn around and graph that, I already have my rise and run. So I tend to like my slope already as a fraction. But that is just my own personal preference to it. So, yeah. All right, so let's look at number 4. So what I want you to do for number 4, even though it's in the video, for number 4, I want you to go ahead and find the slope. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to pause the video. So pause the video, find the slope, and I want you to push play once you have found your slope. So go ahead and push pause for now. Hopefully you've already found, or if you got stuck, that's okay. Because if you look here, we have 4 points, and that's a little bit different. So we have different ways we can do it. We've also learned to find slope from a table by doing change in y over change in x. So I'm going to look at my y. Here it changed by +2. My x here by +1. So I'm going to change in y. Sorry, bells are still going off even though I'm making this when we don't have school. My change in y is 2. My change in x is 1. So my slope is 2. Hopefully we didn't have any problems with that. So now, I want you to pause the video. I want you to go ahead and see if you can find that equation. Now, before you do that, it doesn't matter which point you pick. So if you want to choose 2 positive points just to make it easier, that's fine. I'm perfectly okay with that. I'm going to tell you now that I'm going to pick 2 positive points because I know my students do not like using negatives. I'm actually going to choose this 0, 5. But if you want to choose a different one, that's perfectly fine. So go ahead and pause the video and work it using whatever point you feel comfortable with. Okay, hopefully you actually worked this problem and you didn't just wait till I went over it, because I do want you practicing it even at your home, and I do believe in having that individual practice time. So my y I'm going to keep the same. My y1 I chose to be 5. You could have chosen something else, and that is okay. My slope is 2. X minus my x, which I chose to be 0. So we have y minus 5 with 2x by distributing minus 2 times 0, which is 0. Add 5 to both sides. Y equals 2x plus 5. And of course I could plug in any point, any one of those 4 points, plug it in to see if it works. Alright. So I want you to go ahead for number 5. So I'm looking at the back. For number 5, I want you to try it all the way through. I want you to find the slope. I want you to find the equation. And I want you to push play when you have done all of that, and then we will go through it together. So go ahead and push pause now. All right, hopefully you had a chance to look at this. So I'm going to find my slope, change in y over change in x. If you want to choose 2 points and label them x, y, x1, y1, x2, y2, and write it in this form, that's fine. That's okay. Taking a problem and being able to adapt it to the best way for you to work it, I think is perfectly okay. So my change in y here is +4. +6. You'll notice that there's a different change each time. We'll talk about that really quick. These are the same. But if I do my y over my x, 4 over 6, it's going to simplify to 2 over 3. Even though my changes are different, as long as I pick the one that's on the same level, I don't know if that makes sense, same level or same layer, it'll work out. So my change in y was 4, change in x was 6, making my slope 2/3. And I like to go ahead and label it M. It's kind of, in case I get lost somewhere along this, I can tell what I was doing. Now I'm going to go to my point slope formula. Y minus y1 equals M. X minus x1. Yes, I want you writing the formula every time. when you miss a problem or you get lost in a problem or get stuck in a problem or you're messing up in a problem, if you don't have all the steps down, including what formula you used, it's really hard to say, okay, where did I mess up? What was I thinking here? There's been plenty of you who've come to me and said, I don't know what I'm doing wrong here, but you didn't put down your thoughts, and I wasn't able to necessarily follow your thought process either. So be sure you're putting your steps down. The only reason we don't is because of laziness or because of we run out of room. But I write pretty big and I can fit it, so I feel confident y'all can also. So we have no points that are both positive here. So it doesn't matter which one you pick. I'm just going to go with the first one then, even though it's two negatives. But, oh, sorry, there was an ant on my paper. So I'm going to keep my y. I'm choosing my first y as my point I'm going to use. If I choose the first y, I have to choose the first x. That's one thing. You have to choose its partner, okay? My m was 2/3 x minus a -3. We'll go ahead and add a line, change the sign here to make it y plus 10. Just makes it a little bit more manageable. Distribute, so 2/3 x. Add a line, change sign. Distribute that 2/3. So 2/3 times 3 is just a 2. Again, I can come up here and look at 2/3 times 3. These cancel, leave me with 2/1. I know if you had Miss Hoffpower, she does a great job at teaching y'all how to cancel with multiplication like that. So I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. So y equals 2/3 x minus 8. All right. Hopefully you got that right. If you used a different point and messed up, then I would go back and check your multiplication, your distributing. I would double check that math because you probably just made some small error. All right, let's flip to the back. What is the y-intercept of the line graphed below? Now, y-intercept, I can see, is not a pretty number. I'll zoom in so I can show you what I mean by a pretty number. It didn't go through a corner. And I could go, ooh, it's about 5.5. I could say it's about 5 something, but I don't know for sure. And so we are going to use that concept we just covered to figure out what this y-intercept is. All right. All right, so let's remember what we were doing. So I'm going to flip back over just quickly. What we were doing was we were finding from 2 points, we were being able to put it in the form y equals mx plus b. And that plus that I got each time, remember, is my y-intercept or my minus. So I can use that concept I just learned to then find out my b. So multiple ways here to find my slope. I can take those 2 points, -2, 7, and 6, 1. And I can label them xy, xy, make one of them my 1s, make the other set my 2s, and then do y2 minus y1, kind of like we did right here on the front side. Or I could find the change in my x's and change in my y's, but I think from a graph perspective, the easiest way to do it is rise over run. And since we've looked at the other 2 ways, I'm going to look at rise over run for this one. Now again, this way, if you feel confident every time with that y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, that's great. And I encourage, if that's how you feel comfortable, go for it. But I'm going to go ahead and look at rise over run. So I'm going to start at my point, and I'm going to go down, 1, 2, and I'm looking how far I have to go down to where I'm on the same line as that number. And it took me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And going down is a negative. Okay? I always remember that. I know this is not the best, so forgive me, parents, but if you go down after you die, that is a negative thing. It is bad. You can think of it as your bank account. When it goes negative, when it goes down, that's a negative concept. So in just think of it, bank account, think of it after you die. I don't care how you think about it. I use that one example because a lot of students seem to remember that for some reason. But if you go down, that's going to be your negative. And then going to the right, and I always think of it this way. Going to the right is positive. Doing what is right is positive. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Of course, that can simplify. This can simplify to -3, 4. So if you forgot how to simplify a fraction, divide the top and the bottom number by the same number. So they both divided by 2. So I have a slope. Okay. Again, if you'd done y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1, you would have gotten -3/4 also. All right, so then I'm going to go to my y minus y1 equals m x minus x1. All right, so I'm going to plug it in. So my y stays as y. Doesn't matter which point, I'm going to stick with the one that has 2 positives. You can choose the other one. I know some of you are like, that's kind of silly to stick with the positive ones, but I just do that because I know I have a lot of students who they will do anything to avoid a negative, sorry. I'm just plugging it in. I stuck with this point, so my x value there is a 6. So y minus 1, I have -3/4 x when I hand it over. I'm going to go ahead and add a line change sign because this is a negative. So I'm going to do -3/4. I'm going to do it up here at the top times -6. Okay, and I know you have a calculator, so you can use the calculator, but I'm going to go ahead and just do this by hand. Negative times negative is going to be positive, so 3 times 6 is 18. 18 divided by 4. I can keep it as 9/2. But I'm going to go ahead, since I can see that I'm going to have to grid, I'm going to go ahead and change it. So 9/2 is going to be 4.5. So plus 4.5, because that negative times that negative made it a positive. Not done though, I don't have y by itself, so I need to add 1. I will say this, that is probably going to be some of your biggest mistakes, is forgetting to take care of that plus 1 there. Alright, so we get 5.5. So this is something we haven't looked at with this class, is that the gridables are different for Algebra 1 than they are for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math. So let's take a minute to look at this gridable first. So let's look at what we see first. We see a positive or a negative, so I'm going to choose that it's a positive. And then we have a row of decimals and then a row of numbers. Okay, so I'm just going to come here at the end, and it was a 5, a decimal, and then a 5. And I'm going to then bubble that. And I do have to bubble that decimal in. That is different from 8th grade. 8th grade math, in 7th and 6th grade, they already had that decimal. And we want to start at the end because if there are zeros here, it's okay to have a bunch of zeros here. It's okay to have a bunch of zeros at the end. But we're going to start on that right side. What I did. Okay, and we will talk more about these, especially as we get closer to star. That's one of those things that I don't think is going to be an issue for us. All right, for number 7, the last problem for today, I want you to take a minute to think about this. I want you to think about it first, and then we're going to discuss it. So I want you to push pause. I want you to go ahead and think about this, and then we'll talk about it together. So push play after you've put some thought, maybe worked it out, come up with a solution. So go ahead and push pause. All right, hopefully you've had a little time to think about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, this is an X, and this is a Y. We all agree there. So why don't I just plug it in and see if it works out? Sorry, I'm going to pause to answer my phone real quick. Okay, so I'm going to plug it in. So 3 times negative 4 minus 2 times negative 2 equals negative 16. I'm going to see if that's true. If it's true, then that point works. So 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. Add a line, change the sign. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. Negative 12 plus 4 does not equal negative 16. So A is not correct, so let's look at B. So my y is a negative 2. So 3/2 times my x, which is negative 4, minus 4. Three times negative 4 is going to be negative 12 divided by the 2. So negative 12 divided by 2 is negative 6. Minus 4, add a line, change the sign. Negative 6 plus a negative 4 does not equal negative 2. Let's check out C. 3 times my x, which is negative 4, minus 2 times my negative 2. So all I'm doing is replacing that x, replacing that y. Negative 12. Add a line, change the sign. Negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. Negative 12 plus 4 does equal negative 8. Now before I circle C and say I'm done, remember, we don't want to be lazy about it. We want to prove it, especially when we take that Algebra EOC. We want to check all of our answers because I don't know about y'all, but I make silly mistakes all the time. And so this is just a verification of, all right, I did it right or I did it wrong. So plugged in my x, plugged in my y. Go ahead and solve. So negative 8, 2 times negative 4 is negative 8, minus 2. We want to look at it this way, plus, add a line, change the sign. Negative 8 plus negative 2 does not equal negative 2. So it just verified for me that C is correct. All right, that is all for 7-1 today. Of course, if you have questions, please send me on Teams, or you can send me an email, or if your parents have my cell phone, I don't even care if you send a text message from your parents' phone, please. Please do not use your own if you have my number. If you got it somehow, who knows? All right, so if you have questions, your parents may email me, message me, whatever it takes. I want to be sure you understand this material. No homework tonight. We will do the 7-1 homework tomorrow in class as an in-class assignment instead of a homework. I hope y'all did have a great break. I hope y'all understood this lesson. And see y'all tomorrow.